We live in an economy that prices almost every hour of our waking lives. Time is quite literally money. So it is deeply weird that some of the most labor-intensive projects on Earth run entirely on $0 payrolls. Traditional market economics tells us this shouldn't happen. The theory outlines something called the collective action problem. It assumes humans are rational, self-interested actors. If a public good is being built, the most logical choice is to sit back, do nothing, and become a free rider who reaps the benefits without paying the cost. Yet massive anomalies are everywhere. Much of the internet's backbone runs on open-source software maintained by unpaid developers. The world's largest encyclopedia is curated entirely by volunteers. Tens of thousands of people gather in deserts to build entire pop-up cities for free. Understanding the logic behind these movements explains how strangers can achieve massive coordination when there is no financial incentive on the table. When we see thousands of people rallying around a cause or building a collaborative project, it is tempting to think it happened organically. We treat social movements as spontaneous eruptions of goodwill. But unorganized crowds are inherently fragile. Without structure, well-meaning groups quickly fall prey to group polarization, adopting extreme views to fit in. They suffer from groupthink, suppressing dissenting opinions, and inevitably collapse under their own chaotic weight. A successful collective effort is never a happy accident. To survive past that initial burst of passion, it requires a meticulously engineered system of non-market governance. The actual engine driving these massive uncompensated movements is explained by self-determination theory. Instead of focusing on a paycheck, it focuses on internal human drives. The theory draws a sharp line between two types of drive. Controlled motivation relies on external pressures, financial incentives, or the heavy burden of guilt. Autonomous motivation happens when people act because the work itself is inherently enjoyable or personally important. To trigger that autonomous drive, an environment has to satisfy three basic human needs. People need a sense of autonomy over their actions, the feeling of competence that they are actually good at what they do, and a shared social identity that makes them believe their group can achieve its goals together. You cannot buy the compliance of a massive crowd of strangers. Success requires a psychological environment that satisfies these internal needs. Raw motivation isn't enough. Harvard organizer Marshall Ganz defines community organizing as the act of turning the resources a community has into the tangible power it needs to create change. You need a physical architecture to channel that energy. Look at this diagram from Ganz's organizing framework. The graphic at the bottom shows a classic hub-and-spoke leadership model, similar to a traditional corporate hierarchy. Every decision bottlenecks at a single central authority, leaving the leader completely overwhelmed by incoming arrows. Now look at this alternative structure, the snowflake model. This decentralized framework distributes leadership, eliminating the central bottleneck by spreading responsibility across interconnected local teams. Here, a leader's primary job isn't dictating tasks, but identifying and developing other leaders who then do the same. This structure allows a movement to grow from 5 people to hundreds in a matter of months, relying on local replication rather than a central office. Every year, 80,000 strangers gather in a hostile Nevada desert. For 1 week, they build a temporary metropolis with heavy infrastructure, and they do it entirely without financial compensation. To an outside observer, it looks like pure anarchy, a festival of unrestricted expression. But underneath the dust and the art cars, the entire ecosystem is actually strictly governed. It operates on 10 core principles and is managed by a centralized corporate entity to ensure basic survival and legal compliance. Principles like decommodification and radical self-reliance operate as structural guards, replacing financial transactions with mutual accountability and distributed effort. This aerial photo reveals the result. It is a functional urban grid, plotted and built entirely through decentralized collective action. Creative chaos and massive collaboration are only possible when supported by rigid, decentralized organizational infrastructure. Whether you are building a tech startup, maintaining an open-source repository, or launching a social movement, relying on spontaneous passion is a guarantee of failure. Sustained engagement depends on pairing internal human motivation with a leadership structure that expands through its own members. Collective action is a deliberate architecture, one that allows a community to turn its own resources into the power required to achieve a shared purpose.